There is a place at the bottom of our world, a final frontier not in the stars, but on our own planet. It is a continent of ghosts and echoes where the sun can vanish for months, and the silence is so profound it feels like a physical presence. A continent of ice, larger than Europe. A landmass so vast it defies easy comprehension. 90% of the world's ice is here, a frozen reservoir holding 70% of our planet's fresh water. It is cloaked in an eternal blinding white. A landscape sculpted not by water, but by a relentless gravity-driven wind that carves the frozen terrain into alien shapes. We are told it is a desolate wasteland, the last truly wild place on Earth, hostile to all but the most resilient forms of life. It is the coldest place on Earth, with temperatures plummeting to unimaginable depths, cold enough to shatter steel. It is the driest, a polar desert where precipitation is so scarce it rivals the Sahara, and the air is stripped of all moisture. And it is the highest continent on Earth, its average elevation lifted by a crushing burden of ice that in some places is nearly 3 miles thick. We see it as a place of noble scientific research, a global laboratory for studying climate change, astronomy, and the very origins of life. A sanctuary of pristine, untouched nature. This is the official story, the one written in textbooks and broadcast in documentaries. But what if this official narrative is only a fraction of the truth? A carefully constructed facade designed to distract us from what lies beneath? What if the ice is not just a geographical feature, a relic of the last ice age, but a deliberate veil, a quarantine zone, a barrier designed to conceal secrets that would rewrite everything we think we know about our planet, our history, and our place in the universe? This is Antarctica, the last great mystery, the forbidden continent. Most of us picture it as an empty expanse, a featureless white desert at the bottom of the globe. For centuries it was Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land. A blank spot on the map, a realm of myth and speculation. Today, that blank spot is populated in our minds only by penguins, and a handful of hardy scientists braving the elements in the name of discovery. This image is simple, safe, and reassuring, and it is carefully curated. It's presented to us as final and absolute through official channels and polished media campaigns. But fragments of another story persist. Whispers in the dark. Stories of strange energies that disrupt compasses and communications. Of magnetic anomalies so powerful they defy geological explanation. Tales of ancient ruins, of perfectly geometric structures peeking through the ice, hinting at a civilization that predates all known human history. And rumors of advanced technologies hidden beneath miles of solid ice, artifacts of non-human origin, or perhaps a forgotten branch of our own. These aren't just modern internet fables, born in the echo chambers of the web. They are echoes of classified military expeditions that returned with more questions than answers, of lost explorers' diaries filled with frantic accounts of lands beyond the pole, and of inexplicable scientific discoveries that defy all conventional geological and historical models. Data that is quickly classified and buried. A world of secrets locked away in the deepest freeze imaginable. Consider this. It is the only continent on Earth with no native human population, or so we are told. It is the only landmass governed not by one nation, but by a consortium of the world's most powerful countries, bound together by the Antarctic Treaty of 1959. They tell us this is for its protection, a noble agreement to set aside an entire continent for peace and science. to preserve its fragile ecosystem from the ravages of industrialization and conflict. But the level of control is unprecedented. The treaty, while promoting science, also created the most exclusive club on Earth. Access is more restricted than to any military base. All flights are monitored. Every visitor must undergo rigorous vetting and secure permission from a national authority. Sea routes are patrolled not just by ice, but by vessels enforcing the treaty's strict protocols. And independent exploration is, for all intents and purposes, forbidden. The question we must ask is simple. Why? Why is this frozen desert so heavily guarded? Is it truly to protect penguins and ice cores? What is so important that the entire world, even at the height of the Cold War, agreed to make it a permanent no-go zone for the public? We are led to believe that the greatest barrier in Antarctica is the ice itself, its crushing weight, its bitter cold, and its unforgiving katabatic storms that can create a total whiteout in minutes. But the true barrier may be one of information, a quarantine of knowledge, a wall of secrecy far higher and more impenetrable than any physical wall of ice. It's a barrier built from treaties, regulations, and a silent global consensus among the powerful to keep the public out and to keep something else in. Tonight we journey past that wall. We peel back the layers of disinformation and official denial. We will follow the breadcrumbs left behind by admirals, whistleblowers, and anomalies in the data that the gatekeepers have failed to suppress. We will ask the forbidden questions and explore the chilling possibility that Antarctica is not the end of the world, but the beginning of a profound and unsettling truth about the world we thought we knew. The year is 1946. The world is taking its first tentative breath after 6 long years of brutal conflict. World War II has just ended, and a collective sigh of relief echoes across the globe. The planet is scarred, exhausted, but hopeful. It's a time for healing wounds, for rebuilding shattered cities, for families to reunite. In this new era of fragile peace, nations are demobilizing their armies, bringing their soldiers home. The great war machines are being dismantled, their engines falling silent. Yet, in this global atmosphere of peace, the United States Navy quietly launches one of the largest naval expeditions in its history. A massive mobilization that seems to belong to the war that just concluded, not the peace that has just begun. It is codenamed Operation Highjump. Its destination, the most remote, inhospitable and desolate continent on Earth, Antarctica. The official story given to the public was simple and reassuring. It was a scientific mission designed to establish an American research base and expand our knowledge of the frozen continent. It was also described as a training exercise, a necessary endeavour to test men and equipment in extreme cold weather conditions. After all, the dawning Cold War with the Soviet Union meant that polar combat was now a chillingly real possibility. But the sheer scale of the operation told a very different story. The composition of the fleet did not speak of science, but of conflict. This was no small scientific team braving the elements for discovery. The task force was commanded by the most famous polar explorer of the era, Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd. A national hero, his involvement lent the mission a veneer of legitimacy. But Byrd was a military man, and this was a military operation. Under his command, 4,700 men, most of them combat veterans, a fleet of 13 ships, including an aircraft carrier, the USS Philippine Sea. It was accompanied by destroyers, tankers, icebreakers, and even submarines. This was not an expedition. It was an armada. It was an invasion force. Why would a simple training mission require full-scale naval might, equivalent to a wartime battle group? The question hangs heavy in the historical record, unanswered by the sanitized public reports. The resources poured into Highjump were immense, suggesting a purpose far more urgent than charting ice flows or studying penguins. The budget alone, adjusted for inflation, would be staggering. This was a national priority, executed with wartime urgency. The mission was planned to last for 6 to 8 months, a full season in the Antarctic. But behind the scenes, the true objectives remain shrouded in classified documents, locked away for decades. What was written in the uncensored reports? What was the real threat assessment? The presence of a full carrier air group and submarines is particularly suspicious. These assets have no role in peaceful exploration or cold weather testing. Their purpose is singular: to project power, to hunt, and to destroy. These are not tools for scientific research. They are unequivocally instruments of war. Who or what was the enemy at the bottom of the world? An enemy that required an aircraft carrier and submarines to confront. The hardware, the manpower, the secrecy, the sheer disproportionate scale of the force, all pointed not to discovery, but to confrontation. The United States military did not go to Antarctica to train or to build a simple outpost. They went expecting to find something, or someone. They went prepared for a fight. A fight that has never been entered into our history books. The untold war was about to begin. Operation Highjump was, on paper, a mission of scientific discovery and military training. Scheduled to operate throughout the Antarctic summer, it was a meticulously planned endeavour intended to last for at least 6 long months. The largest expedition of its kind, it was meant to solidify American claims in the polar region and test men and equipment against the harshest environment on Earth. The official objectives were clear: establish a research base, conduct aerial mapping, and train personnel in frigid conditions. But beneath these stated goals, a current of unease was already beginning to flow. But in late February 1947, after a mere 8 weeks on the ice, just a fraction of its intended duration, the entire operation was inexplicably aborted. The mission came to a sudden, deeply mysterious end. The entire armada, a symbol of American post-war might, was ordered to retreat. They were abandoning the continent with a baffling, almost panicked haste. The fleet didn't just leave, it fled. It limped back to the Americas, carrying with it significant casualties and heavily damaged equipment. The official logs would later account for several deaths and numerous injuries, but the true cost, many believe, was far higher and far stranger than what was ever admitted. The official explanation cited worsening weather conditions and the early onset of the Antarctic winter. But for a mission so meticulously planned, led by the world's foremost polar explorer and equipped with the best technology the US Navy could provide, this excuse seemed flimsy, almost insulting. This was a force prepared for the absolute worst. The weather, while brutal, was not something that should have sent them running. It felt like a hastily constructed cover story, a bureaucratic wall of silence designed to conceal a shocking and catastrophic failure. But a failure against what? Or whom? Upon his return, before the official narrative could be fully cemented, Admiral Byrd gave a startling and candid interview to Lee Van Atta, a reporter for the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio. He was quoted as issuing a grave warning, stating that it was imperative for the United States to prepare for a new kind of war. He spoke of the bitter reality and the necessity to defend against enemy fighters that could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. This wasn't a hypothetical scenario. He spoke as if he had witnessed this capability firsthand. His words were not those of a scientist cataloguing discoveries. They were not the words of an explorer mapping new territory. They were the chilling, urgent words of a soldier returning from a battlefield, a commander who had been outmaneuvered and shaken by a technologically superior foe. Who were these enemy fighters? And from where, in the most desolate place on Earth, did they come from? Byrd's chilling statement was almost immediately suppressed. He was reportedly debriefed in Washington and ordered to remain silent. The warning had been given, but it was quickly locked away in the vaults of national security. But you cannot silence 4,000 men. Whispers from sailors, pilots and engineers who were part of the operation began to leak out, painting an even more terrifying and consistent picture. They spoke of things their minds could barely process, things the official record would never acknowledge. Unofficial reports, passed down through decades, describe strange aerial craft emerging directly from the ocean at unbelievable velocity. They were described as flying saucers, a term that would soon enter the global lexicon. These objects allegedly engaged the naval task force, not with bullets or bombs, but with unknown energy weapons that disabled electronics and sliced through steel hulls. The American forces, armed with the best conventional weaponry of their time, were utterly defenseless. Their ordnance had no effect. It was a rout, a one-sided confrontation against a power that defied all known laws of physics. But the most extraordinary, the most unbelievable account of all comes not from sailors' gossip, but from a document that surfaced years after his death, the alleged lost diary of Admiral Byrd. Its authenticity is fiercely debated, but its contents provide a narrative so fantastic it could explain everything. In it, Byrd supposedly documents a solo reconnaissance mission on February 19, 1947. A flight that took him, as he puts it, the pole, into a territory uncharted and unknown to man. He writes that his flight instruments began to malfunction, spinning uselessly. The very laws of navigation seemed to dissolve. But as he broke through a strange, low-hanging layer of clouds, he saw not the endless, blinding ice he expected, but a lush, green land. A hidden world, impossibly nestled within the Antarctic continent, warmed by an unseen internal heat source. And there, moving through the verdant landscape, he witnessed creatures thought to be extinct for 10,000 years. Living mammoths. Drawn deeper into this impossible realm, he flew towards advanced, shimmering cities made of crystal. It was then, he claims, that his plane was taken under control by an unknown force, guided gently but inexorably towards a landing, as if by an invisible tractor beam. There he was escorted into the presence of a being he called the Master, the leader of an ancient hidden civilization. This being explained that their race, the Ariani, had resided within the Earth for millennia, watching the surface world with growing concern. The Master delivered a solemn and terrifying warning. Humanity's recent discovery and use of atomic weapons was a path to certain self-destruction. They had intervened, the being explained, only when they realized humanity's new power was not just a threat to itself, but a threat to the entire planet's delicate balance. The attacks on Operation Highjump were not an act of aggression, but a forceful demonstration, a warning shot. Byrd was tasked with carrying this message back to the surface world. Was this diary a fabrication, the product of a brilliant but stressed mind? A metaphor for the dawn of the nuclear age? Or is it the suppressed truth of what he found at the bottom of the world? A warning not from the stars, but from a world hidden deep beneath our own. To find the potential origin of this hidden threat, we must go back to 1938. A German expedition was launched to Antarctica, with the mission to claim a vast territory for the Third Reich. They surveyed over 600,000 square kilometers, dropping metal darts with swastikas to mark their claim. Neuschwabenland. Their aerial surveys revealed something remarkable. They discovered ice-free areas with exposed rock and lakes, warmed by a network of underground thermal caves. This discovery opened a chilling possibility. A permanent, self-sufficient and secret fortress could be built, hidden from the world. This is the origin of the theory of Base 211. Did the Nazis begin construction of a secret underground fortress? The theory gains traction when we look at the end of the war. Dozens of the most advanced German U-boats vanished. They didn't surrender. Could high-ranking officials have escaped, using these submarines to ferry scientists and advanced technology to Neuschwabenland? In 1945, Admiral Dönitz made a cryptic boast that the German submarine fleet had built an impregnable fortress in another part of the world. This connects the dots. The flying saucers that attacked Operation Highjump could have been advanced Nazi aircraft launched from Base 211. Operation Highjump wasn't a scientific mission. It was a failed invasion to destroy a secret Nazi holdout. The mystery now shifts from the past to the present, from archival records to digital discoveries. On satellite imagery, researchers have spotted multiple structures that look too symmetrical to be natural mountains. They've been dubbed the snow pyramids. Their shape is so precise, they draw immediate comparisons to the ancient pyramids of Egypt. Geologists suggest they are simply natural formations, peaks eroded over millions of years. But the precision is haunting. Could nature alone create such geometric perfection? If they are artificial, it implies a civilization existed on Antarctica when it was ice-free, rewriting the entire timeline of history as we know it. The visual anomalies are backed by scientific data. NASA satellites detected a massive gravitational anomaly in a region called Wilkes Land, suggesting a colossal object is buried deep under the ice sheet. The anomaly is immense, a mascon over 300 miles wide, buried inside a massive impact crater. The official theory is that it's the dense remnant of the asteroid that created the crater. But its existence fuels other theories. Could this be the location of Byrd's hidden city, a crashed ship, or the impregnable fortress itself? The final piece of the puzzle comes from our own history. Ancient maps, like the Piri Reis map, appear to show this land mapped when it was free of ice. This reinforces the idea that this land was once known, once inhabited, and its secrets are far older than we can imagine. In recent years, Antarctica has drawn an unusual kind of visitor. Not just scientists and support crews, statesmen, legends. The question is simple: why now? First, the timing. 2 turbulent years, 2016 and 2017. While the world argued and elections convulsed nations, flight plans quietly arced south, to the loneliest place on Earth. Why would leaders leave capitals in crisis to stand among wind-carved ice? Why the rush, the urgency, the photo ops in parkas? Then silence. Consider one visit that raised more questions than answers. Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church travelled to Antarctica, officially to see penguins and a tiny wooden church perched on the ice. Witnesses recall a solemn rite behind closed doors, an ancient liturgy in a place with almost no people, a blessing, but of whom or what? Here, rumour metastasized into theory, the so-called Ark of Gabriel, a whispered relic, some call it a device, reported to have been discovered beneath holy ground and removed for safety. Skeptics dismiss it as fiction. Yet the story persists that the relic was escorted south to the only continent with no civilians and endless cold for containment. If it were true, would a patriarch come to sanctify it, or to inspect a danger the world is not prepared to face? Then another journey, synchronized with history's ticking clock. On the very day of the 2016 US presidential election, America's Secretary of State arrived in Antarctica. Climate outreach, the brief said. But on the most consequential day for domestic politics, why be half a world away? Was the mission really about ice, or an appointment with someone or something beyond our usual channels? Soon after, a third pilgrimage drew global attention. Buzz Aldrin, astronaut explorer icon, flew south. The visit ended abruptly with a medical evacuation. An alleged message flashed across the internet. "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." Debunked, many say. Fabricated, others insist. But the words linger because they match a fear we rarely name, that under the ice something old and powerful is stirring. Threads converge, a patriarch's ritual, a statesman's perfectly timed detour, a spacefarer's sudden retreat. Coincidence or choreography? Meanwhile, satellites record heat where there should be none. Anomalies blooming beneath the shelves, blue fractures widening, lakes waking in the dark. Scientists describe geothermal pulses and shifting currents. Critics argue it's ordinary variability. Supporters say the signatures look like signals, patterns too rhythmic to ignore. Perhaps these visitors did not come to measure meltwater. Perhaps they came because something has begun to move. If a lock turns in the deep, who holds the key? If a vault opens, who is summoned to stand witness? We are told the journeys were routine, the motives simple, the timing accidental. Yet the ice remembers patterns, and patterns rarely lie. What awakened in 2016-2017 may not be new. It may only be loud enough at last to be heard, and those who heard it first went. Ahead, we return to the greater question. Is Antarctica a prison or a sanctuary? If something stirred beneath the white veil, are we guarding it, or is it guarding us? From Admiral Byrd's warnings to Nazi expeditions, from satellite pyramids to gravitational anomalies, the evidence points to a secret locked away at the bottom of the world. This brings us to the final philosophical question. Is the no-go zone a prison? Is it protecting us from something? A Nazi holdout? A hostile non-human intelligence we provoked and must now contain? Or is it a sanctuary? Is it protecting something from us? A lost world? A fragile ecosystem? Or an ancient civilization that wants nothing to do with our destructive species? Are we the jailers, or are we the barbarians at the gate? Either way, we are being managed. But there is one factor that no treaty can control. The ice is melting. The walls of the prison, or the sanctuary, are beginning to fail. The secret cannot be kept forever. What will we find as the white veil is pulled back? The ruins of a lost age? The entrance to a forgotten fortress? Or will something emerge on its own? As the ice melts, we move toward a day of reckoning. A day we will no longer have to ask what they're hiding. We will see it with our own eyes.